Well, this is it, the final push, the final stage of Tour of Switzerland for 2015, and the organisers have got exactly what they were hoping for. It's a final stage decider for the general classification. We've got the time trial in Bern for the second day in a row. Now, this is the test, the demanding solo race against the watch, over 38.4 kilometres. There's the overall situation with Thibaut Pinot defending that narrow advantage. It's a shrinking advantage over the last 3 days. 34 seconds for Geraint Thomas to make up. Simon Spilak sitting 47 seconds back, and he can test. So too can Domenico Pozzovivo of Italy. 50 seconds in arrears. A podium finish beckons for him. But look at Tom Dumoulin lurking just 1 minute and 24 seconds behind. The jerseys worn by Thibaut Pinot, Peter Sagan, Denifl Morbido, and Team Sky leading the team competition. Pinot in yellow, he's leading overall. Peter Sagan in the black points jersey, Denifl in the blue jersey, the leader of the mountains competition, and Morbido, best Swiss rider. This is what the riders have to face this afternoon. It's a single lap of the course that is all too familiar to them from yesterday's stage. Precisely the same challenge awaits them, though. As I said, this one is against the watch, riding solo through the old town of Bern. Extraordinary architecture on display that the riders will be ignoring completely as they head out into the countryside, and it's a rolling parkour for the riders with two sharp climbs and several other little up and down sections that are set to really spoil the rhythm of the Flat Earth Society time trial riders, and perhaps bring it a little bit back towards the likes of Thibaut Pinot and Pozzovivo and some of the climbers, riders that prefer when things go a little bit north gradient-wise. It's a really, really tough and challenging parkour. The weather is perfect. It's a little bit cloudy and overcast, but, well, it's very, very warm and perfectly dry, so absolutely perfect conditions for the riders to contend. And this time trial has already been underway for quite a while. The starting pistol launching the riders on their way. William Bonnet had the honour of being first rider off. He's at the back of general classification. The Français de Jour rider, the Frenchman, is already in. He's completed his Tour of Switzerland. Another man who has completed Tour of Switzerland for 2015 is Fabien Cancellara, the local favourite. He's had a tough week. Came into it on the back of an illness. Had to take antibiotics last week. But once he got going off the start ramp, he's got some great miles in his legs this week, and he is one of the greatest time trialists of his generation. Spartacus in full flow. Mopped up virtually every rider in front of him and charged to the line, sprinting out of the saddle through the last 150 metres to complete his test, as I say, at an average speed of over 47 kilometres an hour.
As we get flipped back to Peter Sagan in that black jersey, driving up this climb. Fine race he's had. Unless something awful happens, he will be in Bern on the podium in that black jersey. And we know that Oleg Tinkov, the man behind that team, is here. He flew in on his private jet. We had a chat with him yesterday. He seemed in very, very good spirits indeed. And of course the team on a bit of a roll at the moment, with Alberto Contador winning the Route du Sud ahead of the Tour de France. So all things good in the Tinkoff Saxo camp at the moment as we head back to Reichenbach. Just dropping down this descent, looking pretty good at the moment.
So Sebastian Reichenbach pushing in a big way. And look at the size of that crowd out to cheer on the Swiss rider, picking his way around this technical course. And it certainly is a technical course, isn't it? This is demanding pretty much everything from the riders. So Steve Morbido now chasing his fellow countryman and wearing the red jersey of leader of best Swiss rider. They're banging the boards to encourage him on to his best possible effort, and you've got a match race between those. Morbido has the advantage, I suppose, of chasing Reichenbach. 2 minutes between them. Well, put it this way, if Morbido catches him, he knows he's definitely won that competition.
Well, Morbido has got the advantage, but I think, you know, on some of these roads and some of these climbs, the 1 minute interval, you can actually see your rider in front, and it does act. Obviously, you've got to have good legs, but it acts as a bit of a carrot. It can give you that little bit of impetus to try and close the gap down. And it's amazing how important the psychology is in time trialing. Yeah, you have to have the legs, you have to have the mental discipline, as we see Reichenbach using that middle lane and then flicking right.
leaving it late.
Again, he's sort of he's gaining a lot by the lessened traction, but then he's swinging round and probably adding a couple of metres to the line. But I mean, we saw Fabian Cancellara. He didn't opt to use this line. He was riding on the inside, just on the right-hand side, where there is a bit of a curve. But Reichenbach adopting quite an unusual swinging technique up this drag with bare left. And thankfully, the cobbles will end for him. As you see, one of the numerous ornate clocks that pepper this most wonderful of cities.
The Zitglugger clock tower dates back to 1218, that one.
That was a timely intervention. Thank you, Declan.
In every possible way. Now, we are going to get pretty excited about this guy, and this is why. Because he's a little bit more than just the Dutch national time trial champion, as you can see from the colours of his skin suit. This is a man challenging for victory in this time trial today. It's a man also challenging for overall success in Tour de Suisse 2015. He looks calm, he looks relaxed. He's worn the yellow jersey already this week. He's won a stage. He won the prologue. Day one, and Tom Dumoulin is off the ramp and into his effort. Sixth overall going into today's stage. 1 minute and 24 seconds in arrears. And Thibaut Pinot, Geraint Thomas and the rest, Spilak, Pozzovivo, etc. will know all about it. They'll be aware of what he's doing out on the course. As we see Ben King pushing towards the line, it's going to be a big effort. He's certainly got it all out. Trying to get out of the saddle, but he's absolutely spent. Has to get back in. That's a big effort from Ben King as he goes to the line and completes his effort. And he is now, 1 minute and 34 seconds behind. Fifth fastest time.
Good time there for King. You can just see real effort down that finishing straight. He just glances up, looking at the hoarding to check the time. But a fine ride there by the American. He'll be pretty happy with that. Finish only 1 minute 34 off the pace of one of the finest time trialists of a generation, as we see Bob Jungels out on the course.
Yeah, this is one of the stronger riders, and he's just within a handful of seconds of the fastest time through the first intermediate split. His teammate already in. Home and host is Fabian Cancellara with the benchmark time, 48:55.680. Is anyone going to stop it and beat that time? Well, Bob Jungels believes he can. And there's one or two others that believe it as well, not least, of course, the man that's out there now, Tom Dumoulin.
Yeah, Jungels doesn't need, only needs about 30 seconds to overhaul Warren Barguil to move himself into the top 10.
Now, here is, I'm not going to say a mystery man, but in terms of his time trial ability, Miguel Angel Lopez is a rider that we just don't know a lot about. He's only a first-year pro. He won the Tour de l'Avenir 12 months ago, which is that's a race that anyone who wins it is definitely a superstar in the making. He's first-year pro with Astana. He's had a fantastic week, fourth up into the Rettenbach Gletscher. What can he do against the watch?
Yeah, well, I've managed to do a little bit of digging about him in relation to time trialing. There isn't that much information, but he was fourth in the under-23 Colombian time trial championships a couple of years ago, and a kind of steady 35th or 36th in the under-23 World TT Championships. But again, he's had an absolutely tremendous week. As we see, a bit of problems there for Tom Dumoulin on the gears. It looked like he was riding in slow motion. There was clearly a lag in relation to the gear change. But we know that Tom Dumoulin, in terms of the gears he's gone for a 56 outer ring, a 44 inner ring, and I think he's still in the big ring there. But look how still and steady he is. Lovely, smooth, metronomic style from the Dutch TT champion.
Well, let's keep an eye out for that, because clearly Tom Dumoulin had a bit of a gear issue there. It looked like he was cycling through treacle, didn't it? He was definitely on 56.11 or something very like it for a little moment there. Now, Stefan Denifel, give him a big cheer. The man who's won the mountains competition in the top 10 up to the mountain in his home nation of Austria in the middle of the week, and he completes his time trial. 22nd fastest, just over 3 minutes slower than Fabian Cancellara. Denifel will get the final mountains jersey of the week. Proud week for him.
Definitely a solid ride. Still very respectable. Crosses the line in that blue jersey, and again, the Am Cycling will be very pleased with this 27-year-old. The Austrian had a superb week. As you see, another rider on the ramp, Pozzovivo.
Got that aero bottle there, it's distinctive. It's absolutely tiny bike, this. Domenico Pozzovivo, the Italian rider, fourth overall, 50 seconds back, traded 3 seconds with Simon Spilak yesterday, but he was towing the yellow jersey group home in the last few hundred meters. Diminutive, but he gets on top of a big gear, doesn't he? And this man surprised us in the last couple of years with a couple of his time trial performances, notably in the Vuelta in 2013 on a rolling course, not dissimilar to this, maybe a little bit more mountainous. But he's also come up with one or two good time trials in the Giro d'Italia as well, and Trentino, if memory serves, over the last couple of years. So Pozzovivo, don't rule him out. And certainly Simon Spilak, next off the ramp, will be well aware that that little pocket rocket is not a rider to be dismissed lightly. So as we watch Reichenbach in his effort, very much down on the skis and hanging out of a big gear.
As we see Simon Spilak on the ramp.
He's not a big guy, Spilak, either, is he? We're coming down towards the mountain goats, the riders that can really get up the hills. And Spilak, one of the strongest riders on the climb to the Reichenbach Gletscher in the middle of the week. A Slovenian making a big name for himself in the last couple of years. 28 years of age, won GC and Tour of Romandie back in 2010. Let's take another home favourite, Martin Elmiger, across the line. He's not going to get to Sylvain Dillier's time, but it's going to be a strong top 10 performance from Martin Elmiger. The road champion of Switzerland is also a very swift tester. Sixth fastest at the moment, just over a minute and a half slower than the home favourite, Fabian Cancellara.
Great time there by Martin Elmiger. He's got stronger and stronger, had a great classics campaign this year, finishing the top 10 in Paris-Roubaix. He's been active this week, and finishing off the Tour of Switzerland was a fine time trial as we head back to Tom de Moulin.
Picking up de Moulin out on the road. Into that familiar tuck. Third in the World Championships, remember, 12 months ago. And through the first intermediate split that comes out less than 4 kilometers in, he was just 2 seconds behind. Second fastest, just 2 seconds behind Cam Meyer, who's already in. He's third fastest at the moment. And Tom de Moulin actually faster than Fabian Cancellara by fractions of a second through that first split. It's early days, though. Yeah, there's a lot of climbing to come. It
certainly is. That first split only comes after 3.8 Ks, you can see on your screen there. The next intermediate split we do have, we're fortunate enough to have quite a few intermediate splits. Just for your information, we have one at 15.5, 20.2, 21, 33, 37, just a little bit before the finish, and then obviously across the finish line as we see Geraint Thomas, second overall.
He's very pensive, as you might expect. No doubt there's a few butterflies in that stomach. The young Welshman, not quite so young now as he was, but still emerging as a contender for national tours, for World Tour stage races, 29 years of age. Gets the countdown, gets his time trial underway. Geraint Thomas is into the race of truth. Twice a gold medalist as a member of the Team Pursuit quartet at the Olympics. Geraint Thomas, no mean performer when he races solo against the watch. Oh, he'll believe.
He certainly will believe. I mean, what a week he's had. I mean, we saw, as we see Steve Borabito, very still style there from the Swiss rider, of course, in that red jersey, making sure that Reichenbach doesn't eat into his lead. An interesting use of the tri-bars there. If you just look very, very closely, just under his left forearm is a gel taped to the tri-bars. We saw Warren Barguil actually have one up his sleeve, so
different
riders
approaches.
Using different approaches to getting their gels, but no, what a week Geraint Thomas has. It's interesting, we haven't really, because the racing has been so fast and furious over the last few days, we haven't had a big chance to talk about Geraint Thomas, but when we saw him ride the Reichenbach Glacier, that's the first time in his career he's ever ridden the whole climb full gas, as it were, to use that stock phrase. He's always worked in the service primarily of team leaders like Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome, and swung off halfway up, 2/3 the way up, and didn't know how to really ride it. So he's in completely new territory, riding for the overall classification. And I think, as we see Thibaut Pinot just preparing himself, it's all to go for.
There is the overall race leader of Tour of Switzerland going into the final 38.4 kilometers. Will he still have the yellow jersey at the conclusion of today's activities? It remains to be seen. Thibaut Pinot is an emerging hero in France, already a stage winner in his home tour. He's finished third in the Tour de France 1 year ago, but Tour of Switzerland would represent him significant step up and a significant addition to his Palmares. Has he got what it takes against the watch? It remains to be seen. Much of the talk this week has been about the ability of Tom Dumoulin and Geraint Thomas heading into this final time trial. But Thibaut Pinot is down the ramp, and I can tell you he's got some solid results against the watch, significantly and most prominently actually in Switzerland over the last couple of years, in Romandy and indeed in Tour of Switzerland, capable of pulling out a top 10 performance.
Definitely, it was. I think it was ninth last year in the Tour of Switzerland time trial over a rolling course. But this year, if you look at the Tour of Romandy, TT, when you compare him to riders that he's got to worry about, he actually conceded 45 seconds in the Tour of Romandy time trial over 17 kilometres to Spilak. He was 20th in the time trial at Tour de Pays Basque, and he lost 1 minute and 1 second to Tom Dumoulin. This is going to be very, very finely balanced, but he's got the yellow jersey on his shoulders and he's riding well.
Fabian's in the hot seat. He's going to spend a little while longer there, I've no doubt about it, but will he still be there at the end of today's stage? Tom Dumoulin's out on course and is matching Cancellara through the first intermediate split. Spilak's going well as well, I can tell you. Simon Spilak, who's sitting third overall, is well, actually faster than Dumoulin and Cancellara by 2 seconds.
Spilak gone out of the blocks. We thought that Cam Mai went out quick, but Spilak is actually on the same time, obviously just a few hundredths of a second in it.
He's pumped. He's gone out like a scalded cat. And Simon Spilak is, well, 2 seconds to the good. It is very, very early days and hills to come. Dumoulin in that familiar tuck, sits well on the bike. It's a busy stall, and he hangs out of, well, I was just about to say he was hanging out of pretty big gear, and then he flew up the block, and he's right at the top and sticking it, well, hanging on to the big ring for as long as he can.
He is. We again spoke to his team mechanics about the gear choice, looking at the wheel choice too, and he went out to have a proper recon of the course to finally decide on the gearing. And as I said, 56.44, a big gear to hoop, but there are, as we see Konstantin Sitsov just going up this long drag, there are some very, very fast sections of road. We saw, remember yesterday, if you watched the footage, that long descent that's wide open, and that's why you need to turn the bigger gear, as we see Thibaut Pinot hitting this cobbled section early in the race.
Konstantin Sitsov was just about 1 minute 25 seconds slower than the best time through the 21-kilometre point. Thibaut Pinot in the Old Town, playing himself into this time trial. You don't want to go too deep too early, and he's taking the Cancellara approach. We saw Cancellara over on the right-hand side of the road, not switching around the monuments in the centre of the road, not quite as obsessed with getting that smooth road in the middle, because he's got that nice little narrow patch of smooth, and that's quite an interesting and intelligent piece of route management. It
is, as we see another Swiss rider, all the Swiss riders doing very, very well, coming into the finish zone, but interesting style there from Thibaut Pinot. Very low in the saddle as he takes the right-hand side.
Now let's take Michael Albacini through the final kilometre as he pushes towards the line. Albacini into the final couple of 100 metres. He's been very, very busy, very active all week. Didn't quite get the stage victory that he'd hoped for. And indeed, it looks as if he's almost going to be overhauled. Jerome Coppel, let's watch out for this time, because he set some very, very impressive intermediate performances across the line. Third fastest for Coppel, less than 25 seconds behind Fabien Cancellara. Representing EM Cycling, the Frenchman has got it all out and goes to third fastest.
Sorry, a great time by Coppel. He was doing some very, very good intermediate checks. Third at the second intermediate check, third at the third intermediate check, and has maintained that tempo all the way through to the line. But a big, powerfully built, well, not powerfully built, just a rangy rider. Well, what a superb time trial by the Frenchman, as you say, Declan. Third at the moment.
There's the Bundeshaus, the Federal Palace. Quick, fleeting glimpse of it. Thibaut Pinot not looking up, not looking left or right. He can think about going on the sightseeing tour tomorrow if he's still around. But right now, his entire focus is on hanging on to that yellow jersey. He wants the final one of the week. He's worn a few, hasn't he? But he's seen his link shrink over the last few days. He's been just trading 5 seconds here, 3 seconds there to his rivals, particularly Geraint Thomas and Tom Dumoulin over the last couple of days, and that could prove absolutely critical. So while he's ridden close to the front, towards the back end of the road stages since he got that yellow jersey, he has found that he's been caught out a little bit with those splits.
Well, he's the few interviews he's given to a few French magazines and in the press conference, he said that he found a couple of the finishes dangerous. And again, I don't necessarily agree they were dangerous. They're just finishes to bike races that are quite technical and quite difficult. And we know, without knocking Thibaut Pinot too much, he's had confidence issues on descents in the past. He's got far better at descending, but what he needs to work on, with the greatest of respect, is not to lose valuable seconds in the finale of these races. I mean, 5 seconds, and 3 seconds again yesterday. That could prove extremely costly at the back end of this race now.
Sitsov, 24 seconds back at the first split, and he's just under a minute and a half back at the just beyond the halfway point.
It's a solid time, as you can just notice by his kit there. He is the Belarusian TT champion. Got those flashes on his bullied Pinarello and on his jersey as well. A nice little flourish. He can ride a very, very good time, so it looks very stylish on the bike. It's interesting when you look at the style of Sitsov and some of the taller riders compared to Thibaut Pinot. The bike, he doesn't look comfortable on the bike, Thibaut Pinot. He's very forward. He sits very, very low indeed. An interesting style, as we see again, a man who is extremely well poised on his bike, Bob Jungels.
There's a big time coming up from Bob Jungels through the just beyond the halfway point. The Luxembourg rider, fourth fastest, just 7.5 seconds back. How much has he saved for the second half of this course? And really pedaling, very high cadence for the young Luxembourg rider. Climbs well, went into this stage 13th overall. His teammate Fabien Cancellara at the top of the timesheets. Tom Dumoulin absolutely flying out on course. Is he going to break local hearts and steal this stage? More importantly, how much faster, if that happens, or regardless, how much faster can he go than Geraint Thomas, Spilak, Pozzovivo, and most importantly, Thibaut Pinot?
Well, interestingly, looking at the first intermediate time check, Cam May is still the quickest, Spilak at essentially the same time, Geraint Thomas going through the first intermediate check at 3.8 seconds, at only 1 second, just ahead of Tom Dumoulin, just ahead of Fabien Cancellara. So even Stevens at the moment, but a very, very fast start from the Welshman. If we look down at the first intermediate split, it doesn't look as if Thibaut Pinot is there at all. We'll just scroll down. 13th at, or 13 seconds he's conceded in the opening 3 kilometres, so significant time loss so early in the race.
That's got to be a massive worry. He was 7 seconds down on Tom Dumoulin in the prologue this week. If you extrapolate that out, that would suggest he's going to lose 2 minutes on if it was a flat time trial course over this length. Well, this isn't flat. You would have thought it would come back to him. Let's take Peter Sagan into the finish of his Tour of Switzerland expedition. He's going to win the points jersey. He scored 2 stage wins this year. He's not going to win the time trial. It's still a pretty strong performance from the Slovakian rider. He's home, he's finished, and he is the winner of the points classification. It's been a big week for Peter Sagan. 11 stage wins in his Tour of Switzerland career.
Yeah, quite astonishing. He's level with 2 legends of the sport. As we head back to Thibaut Pinot, can see there you go, 31st through the first intermediate check, 13 seconds loss. And if you use simple extrapolation, it's not looking good for the Frenchman. Can he find anything? Has he started off a little bit slow? Will he build up his tempo? He's riding well at the moment, but again, very, very low, punchy style on that Lapierre bike.
Well, Geraint Thomas, Tom Dumoulin, and Fabien Cancellara, those 3 riders locked to within fractions of a second up to the 4 kilometre point. Thibaut Pinot 13 seconds back. That's how significant this first split is for Pinot. Has he saved enough to try and, well, not lose any more time? I mean, how much can he gain on Dumoulin or not lose through the hilly points, because that really is going to be significant.
It is. It's, as we see, a Rafa Majka out on the course for Tinkoff Saxo, the Polish rider, trying to build his form ahead of the Tour de France. As we said, we've seen him riding in the service of Peter Sagan earlier this week. I think the Polish rider's form improving all the time. Looking pretty good at the moment, 6th through that intermediate check there. So looking to post a very, very good time. Indeed, it looks like he's actually caught Chavez, the Colombian, riding on Orica Green Edge.
Could be his top 6 time for Rafa Majka. Needs to be a little bit better than that for Tom Dumoulin if he's going to win this bike race overall, and I can tell you he's absolutely flying along. On the small ring now, it's not that small, the small ring, I can tell you, because this is a pretty steep hill. And Tom Dumoulin pushing hard to try and unseat Thibaut Pinot. Robert Hessink out on course. We've already seen Lawrence Tendam, his teammate, through this 21-kilometre point. Hessink finds himself 8th fastest, so it's a solid effort so far.
Yes, solid effort by Hessink. Again, not a noted time trialist, but trying to maintain that place on the general classification, trying to move up because it is quite tight for the minor placings in this race, and looking pretty powerful at the moment. Again, another rider looking ahead to try and build his form towards the Tour de France.
Interesting, his average speed, 42.27 kilometres an hour. The average speed for Fabian Cancellara is over 47 kilometres an hour, so there's a massive gain from this point in terms of average speed through to the finish.
Well, basically, if you look at the course tops out in terms of height gain at around 740 metres at around 25 k's, and then that's coming from about 500 metres in height, so then the riders drop down pretty much all the way up, save for a few little digs, so the second part of the course pretty much dropping all the way, and that's where the average speed will then creep up a little bit.
And that's where they need that big gear.
Definitely. Yeah, we've got to, well, as we look at Geraint Thomas, look at his face there.
Just
Absolutely.
1 second back, Matt. This is a big effort from Geraint Thomas, and it's looking good so far, because certainly this rate of progress will hold off Tom Dumoulin, and, well, certainly if he continues to gain 13 seconds every 4 kilometres, he'll surely overhaul Thibaut Pinot. Could it be on for Geraint Thomas to take a National Tour victory?
It's certainly possible the way he's riding at the moment. 50 seconds, remember, Dumoulin has on Pinot. Sorry, out on Thomas, and they're riding exactly the same sort of pace at the moment. So Thomas riding perhaps to a most famous stage win. We've talked about gearing as we head back to Thibaut Pinot. Geraint Thomas opted for 56 on the outside, 44 on the little ring to give him as much advantage on these long downhill sections. But Thibaut Pinot losing ground all the time at the second intermediate split, which will come very soon. We'll see what he's lost. But what is he thinking? What can he produce in the latter stages of this time trial?
Yeah, in terms of position, there's a notable difference, really, isn't there, between himself and the likes of Geraint Thomas and Tom Dumoulin in terms of the sort of rounded back and slightly high shoulders. Doesn't quite get the head lower than the shoulders and the shoulders down over the stem, the way those incredibly flexible riders are capable of doing.
When all riders in most of the teams now, they work very closely with the bike manufacturers. Given the fact that he's a Grand Tour contender, finished third last year, they will be they've gone in the wind tunnel and have worked on his style, but there is already certain limits to how you can change the way you sit on a bike. Tom Dumoulin, Geraint Thomas look completely at one with the machine. Thibaut Pinot doesn't quite look as if he fits particularly well on that low-profile machine. I know he'll be trying his hardest, but again, clearly not a natural TT specialist.
Pinot does have some strong performance. 4th in the Criterium International time trial over 7 kilometres this year. 9th in the Tour de Suisse concluding time trial 12 months ago. Conceded 1 minute and 13 seconds to Tony Martin on that occasion. Less than a minute conceded to Tom Dumoulin on that occasion. So Pinot can pull one out of the bag when he needs to. 6th in the Tour de Suisse long time trial over 26.8. A little bit shorter than today's effort. He lost less than a minute to the winner on that occasion, Roy Costa, who indeed has won the last 3 editions of Tour de Suisse. He's not present this year. He's done enough winning in Tour of Switzerland. He's going to leave it up to someone to become a first-time winner of Tour of Switzerland, because the only 2 former champions that are in the field this year, Fabian Cancellara is not going to win it, obviously, and neither is Frank Schleck. Pozzovivo out on course. 12 seconds conceded through the first 4 kilometres. Flat road to start this time trial off. Now he's into his hill effort, and this might be a little bit more towards Pozzovivo's strength.
Yeah, it's a flat, and then the downhill section on the very early, so slightly creeping up for the first kilometre, then dropping down, then flat, and this is where the road starts to creep up. Then at 15 kilometres you get the first of the hills. Then at around 18 kilometres the road ramps up pretty much continuously to around 22 and a half k's before then dropping down to the finish. So this is where you'd think that Pozzovivo may gain. But here's yesterday's stage winner, Alexei Lutsenko. He looks like he's on a good time.
Yeah, it's coming in for a big time. No surprise that this rider is a very impressive performer against the watch. He's a powerfully built rider, isn't he? And he is a big name emerging in world cycling. Alexei Lutsenko riding to the line, riding to a top 10 position for sure. Going to be a little bit slower than Martin Elminger. Plenty to continue to ride for. Will it be a top 10 time? It's going to be close for Alexei Lutsenko. He gets across the line. 9th fastest. Just over a minute and a half behind Fabian Cancellara. So many riders at that sort of 90 to 100 second mark, just behind Cancellara. Lutsenko, one of those. Top 10 position for him at the moment. But I think a couple of riders coming behind him that are capable of unseating him. Still, it's been a good effort for Lutsenko. Must have had tired legs after yesterday's effort.
And this is Hainaut out on the course, but some more information, Declan, in relation to the second time jet. Tom Dumoulin has gone through in first place, 2 seconds faster than Fabien Cancellara, 6 seconds quicker than Adriano Malori.
So Dumoulin is doing what Dumoulin does best and what is expected of him. Second intermediate split reveals that the Dutchman is the fastest rider. Will he be able to retain that position? We have seen a fluctuation in performance through the splits because, well, first of all, the organisers have given us so many. They've given us about 6 different intermediate segments, which is an amazing amount of statistical input. Not all races can do that, so thank you very much to the Tour de Suisse organisers for the level of support. But also, it's you know, there's such a variance in the terrain that riders are ebbing and flowing. The performances are changing around through the race.
Well, definitely. Well, the intermediate 2 comes at basically where the road kicks up, and we saw Tom Dumoulin just swinging onto that country road where the road rises. And here's the virtual classman at the moment.
Thibaut Pinot just about hanging on grimly, but it's early days in this time trial. He's got 22 seconds advantage over Thomas Spilak. A little bit further back, Dumoulin has moved up to 5th fastest, but this is the virtual situation out on the road. Not all riders have reached the same point, of course, so it is not to be so much to be taken with a pinch of salt, but you understand what those statistics are, and that Thibaut Pinot could well be keeping quite a bit in reserve and will be looking forward to the hills to come.
Well, it doesn't look like there's going to be any danger from Pozzovivo. He's gone through the second intermediate time split at 59 seconds, 24th place for him at the moment.
Reichenbach, in his battle with Steve Morabito, finds that he's 28th fastest just after halfway at the 21-kilometre point. Just under a minute and a half slower than his fellow countryman Cancellara, who sits in the hot seat, but he's under threat from Tom Dumoulin out on course.
He certainly is, just those 2 seconds, but a long way to go yet. As we see Geraint Thomas on this climb, flying round this course at the moment is the Welshman. He's certainly got the form. Ridden exceptionally well this week, always at the head of affairs, rode that mountain so well, considering it was the first time he'd ever needed to ride as a team leader, but then he's always ridden at the front. He's got confidence on the bike, and again, you know, we can wax lyrical about Geraint Thomas, but what a consummate all-rounder. How multi-talented is this lad.
Got the Welsh colours proudly emblazoned on the back of his time trial helmet, and he'd certainly be fated if he brings the Tour de Suisse title back to Cardiff after this.
Just a close look at the chain when it drops down onto the small ring for Geraint Thomas. 56 and a 44.
As we pick up the side of Steve Morabito. And Morabito in the red jersey of leading rider in the Swiss classification finds himself 10th fastest through the split, and we saw that his rival for that position, Reichenbach, was what, 28th fastest through the 21-kilometre point. So things looking good for Steve Morabito, heading towards what's likely to be a 3rd top 10 finish in the Tour de Suisse, his home tour. And Morabito could well actually be moving up the overall classification. Very solid performance so far. Spilak out on course, absolutely blistering time through the first split. And Spilak, the Slovenian, won the Tour of Romandie back in 2010 at Eschborn Frankfurt in 2013. 3 times second in Tour of Romandie, so he really does specialise in the second of the 2 Swiss stage races. Now Tom Dumoulin. Slower than Malori. Sorry, 11 seconds faster. Well, look at that. This is an absolutely savage time coming in from Tom Dumoulin. 11 seconds to the good. Malori, who sits currently 2nd fastest. 15 seconds behind Fabien Cancellara, but Malori it was who led through that point on the course, and now Dumoulin's absolutely obliterated that time. There's no doubt about it. The fastest man in the Tour of Switzerland time trial is Tom Dumoulin. Will he be able to retain this rate of progress all the way to the finish line? It remains to be seen, but that is a picture of power. Tom Dumoulin charging down the hill after the second intermediate split, and he is absolutely flying.
He certainly is. Look how smooth he is. He's a master of the measured effort. Rode a consummate mountain time trial, didn't he? or they knew he would kind of lose time to the specialist climbers, this man in particular. But this is a completely different scenario. Thibaut Pinot not really at home on this sort of terrain, but he won't give up without a fight. Fighting with his bike up this climb. Remember, the added impetus, the added honour of wearing the yellow jersey means this rider, however he's feeling, will squeeze out every last bit of energy, as we see winner Anacona, coming down the finish straight from Movistar.
Winner Anacona of the Movistar squad, the Colombian rider. This is going to be a very impressive effort indeed as he rides to the line. Top 10 position for Anacona. He goes 8th, just over a minute and a half behind Cancellara.
Looking at the second intermediate time check, as we see the slow motion of Anacona, Geraint Thomas has gone through in the same time, bar a couple of fifths of seconds. Tom Dumoulin, it's actually Spilak who leads. Geraint Thomas at the same time, Dumoulin the same time, Cancellara at 3 seconds. So basically Spilak, Thomas and Tom Dumoulin at 15.5 Ks are hardly split at all. This is absolutely sensational.
Well, it's a cracking stage, there's no doubt about it. And I think everyone would appreciate this, except perhaps for Thibaut Pinot, who's really suffering out there. He doesn't seem to have anything like the same form. Look at his legs. I mean, he's a mountain climber. He likes it when the climbs are long and steep. His thighs will tell you that. Completely different physical specimen, really, and that's what makes stage racing great, isn't it? It's such a variety of terrain and such a variety of challenges for the riders. And at the end of 9 days of tough racing, they're separated by seconds. They're separated by fractions of seconds in this time trial because Simon Spilak absolutely level on time. Oh, that was a sketchy right-hander, wasn't it?
I mean, as well as powering on the flat, he's taking a few risks around these corners. You could just see his back wheel skip out a bit, just about held on, but Spilak absolutely flying around this course around Bern today. He swings left, looks very, very good. Remember, second in the time trial at the Tour of Romandie, climbing very, very well and looking pretty dangerous at the moment, but not much to split these riders.
Nothing to split them, really. Certainly, there isn't a full second between Simon Spilak, Geraint Thomas and Tom Dumoulin through the 15.5 kilometre point. Dumoulin is further through around the course. He's the fastest man through 21 kilometres by fully 11 seconds, but coming behind him, Spilak and Thomas are also putting in a very, very similar effort. It's extraordinary how closely they are matched.
This is what this confirmation now. Thibaut Pinot has gone through the second intermediate time check at 15.5 kilometres, 48 seconds behind Spilak, which is essentially the same time as Geraint Thomas. That moves at the moment Thomas into the lead.
So Geraint Thomas is the virtual leader of the Tour of Switzerland on the final stage. He's overhauled Thibaut Pinot. If he continues this rate of progress, there's no doubt that the Welshman will overhaul the current yellow jersey contender. Will Tom Dumoulin be able to overhaul Geraint Thomas or Simon Spilak? At the moment, they're so closely matched. It's a battle for stage honours, but it's looking good for Thomas for the overall win.
It's also looking good for Spilak at the moment, given the times we have on the road. Again, the 15.5 kilometre check. The virtual second place overall is Spilak. Spilak has actually overhauled Thibaut Pinot for the second spot on the podium too. Can Pinot find some more strength in the second part of this time trial? Because at the moment, he's losing his lead.
Tom Dumoulin just hops over a roundabout. It is as if it isn't even there. The final stage of the Tour of Switzerland, over 38.4 kilometres. It's one lap of the circuit they used in the final road race yesterday. We're in Bern, the capital of Switzerland, and waiting for the arrival of Spilak, Thomas, Thibaut Pinot and of course Tom Dumoulin. Dumoulin's going to get there first. What will the time be? At the moment it looks as if he's going to disappoint the local favourites, the local crowd, because Fabian Cancellara is sitting at the top of the timesheets, but surely not for much longer. 48.55.68 is the target time as we get an indication of the splits. Geraint Thomas is looking like he is going to win the Tour of Switzerland. At the moment he carries a 13-second advantage over Spilak, with Pinot likely to slip to at least third place, possibly more.
Well, as you see, the little Italian Domenico Pozzovivo for AG2R racing up this climb on his Focus low profile. I don't think I've ever seen, Declan, a time trial where we've had 3 leaders on the same time so deep into the race. Okay, we've still got 15, 16 kilometers still to go, but 3 riders split by tenths of seconds. I don't think I've ever seen that before in a time trial.
Well, if you had to guess or bet, would you say that the second half of the course would favour Spilak, Thomas or Dumoulin?
Probably Dumoulin, I mean, because then the road drops. I mean, Simon Spilak is a very, very good climber. Tom Dumoulin less so, but he's a big rouleur. And let's look at the intermediate check here.
Well, Spilak has an advantage of a massive 3.5 tenths of a second.
Hardly anything at all. An absolute gnat's whisker. But just to answer your question, Declan, in full, I think, depending on how the legs are feeling, remember they've had a week long of hard racing. The back part of this course should suit Tom Dumoulin. That's when he'll get that big gear rolling. Let's have a quick look at the gearing that Spilak has gone for. He's gone for a 56.44, same as Tom Dumoulin and the same as Geraint Thomas. Chosen exactly the same gear ratios, and at the moment, nothing between them.
Yeah, same gear, same legs, same lungs as Spilak. Through the first intermediate split, no seconds between himself, Tom Dumoulin and Geraint Thomas. Through the second intermediate split, no seconds to separate them, no full seconds at least. Now Bob Jungels, his teammate Fabian Cancellara is already in. This is going to be a fine effort from Jungels, who is one of the world's best time trialists. Into the final few hundred metres, out of the saddle for one final effort, and I tell you what, it is not easy to get out of the saddle at the end of the time trial. Back in and he'll get back out again, I think. It's going to be a great effort. Bob Jungels, could he overhaul Jerome Coppel? He certainly is going to, I think. Jungels to the line for a top 3 performance. 22 seconds behind Fabian Cancellara. It is a fine effort from Bob Jungels, and that's surely going to be a top 10, and perhaps top 5 by the end, well, maybe top 6 by the end of today's time trial. Bob Jungels from Luxembourg is home with third fastest time.
Yeah, superb ride by the Luxembourg rider there. Again, a noted time trialist, and with that ride could move himself well into the top 10. He's Cortez Chavez, the rider in front of him. But at the moment, it's the race for the Tour of Switzerland that's going on in front of us. Thomas, is that 5 seconds conceded to Spilak? We'll get confirmation of that.
Well, of all the riders out there, it's of the riders that are certainly contending for stage honours, it's Geraint Thomas that has the advantage in as much as the other riders' performances can be relayed to him. He, you know, depending on whether he wants the team to give him that information or not, that's another thing, of course. But if he wants that information, that can be relayed to him because he's following on the road.
This is an interesting situation on the road. Remember, Spilak is only 13 seconds behind Thomas on the road. So Simon Spilak at the moment absolutely motoring, is 5 seconds. Geraint Thomas is 5 seconds behind Simon Spilak at the moment. So okay, very interesting situation on the road.
So Spilak is eating into Geraint Thomas's advantage, and Thibaut Pinot, it is a long day out for him at the moment because he's really slipped out of contention.
So the real sensation of the day at the moment is Simon Spilak absolutely motoring around this course at the third intermediate check at 20.2 kilometres. Spilak went through 5 seconds quicker than Geraint Thomas, so in relation to the that's basically only 8 seconds off overhauling him for the overall classification of this race.
We're starting to see little bits of separation between the riders. Dumoulin closing up on Spilak through 21 kilometres to within a second of the Slovenian rider. Geraint Thomas then trading 7 seconds as we see Tom Dumoulin really charging through these bends, coming towards the end of his effort, coming towards the end. Let's get a replay of this. Woof, that was not in the script. Did he plan for that one?
No, he just took too much speed coming in, nearly wiped out, well, didn't nearly wipe out, just about missed that lady with a pushchair on the right-hand side there, but fortunately, Tom Dumoulin, the Flying Dutchman, stayed upright, but that just shows the risks he's taken and how quick he needs to go around those corners, but that was absolutely sensational.
Yeah, and how he found that little bit of a gap in the concrete there, as we see Rafa Majka pushing toward the line. The Polish rider from Tinkoff Saxo stops the clock 6th fastest. Just 1 minute and 6 seconds slower than Cancellara.
A solid time there from the pole.
Oh, that was a massive moment there for Tom Dumoulin. Yeah. Sure, we're going to see that again.
It's so. Well, the thing is, with riding with a disc wheel around those corners, you can't corner like you can with a normal road wheel. The wheel, because it's solid, it's made of carbon fibre, it doesn't give. So what that does, it pushes you out. You can't cut into the corners because the bike drifts to the left-hand side. He just basically had to go with the bike. If he adjusted too suddenly or braked, you're down because, again, the whole poise and balance on these low-profile aero machines is far more different than on a road bike.
Essink, 2 minutes 30 seconds behind Dumoulin. 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 2 minutes 30 se for the line, and he has decided to open the jets and test his time trialing ability ahead of the Tour de France. And this is not a bad effort in a branch of the sport, in a discipline that he hasn't been particularly impressive in over the years, but he's heading towards what could potentially be a top 10 finish in a World Tour time trial. At the end of a long week of hard racing, Robert Hessing stops the clocks, 7th fastest, 1 minute and 13 seconds slower than Fabian Cancellara. He'll be satisfied with that, I think.
Yeah, solid ride by the Dutchman. Didn't opt to take his gel, still in his left leg there. Obviously was feeling pretty good. No need for a bit of caffeine on the running, but here's the current yellow jersey wearer, Thibaut Pinot. How much has he conceded at this intermediate check?
So this is the 3rd split on the road, just after halfway, and he stops the clocks. 12 fastest, almost a minute in arrears. It's a tough day out for Thibaut Pinot. He's trying as hard as he possibly knows how, but it's not working out for him. His dreams of overall glory in Tour of Switzerland are ebbing away because the second half of the course is unlikely to favour his particular abilities. Geraint Thomas, though, is going very well indeed. For all that, he is trading a little bit of time to Tom Dumoulin and indeed to the man closest to him on the overall classification, Simon Spilak.
Well, he's now lost another second, 8 seconds now. Remember, he only had 13 seconds. So if the Slovenian rider gains another 5 seconds, he will move and holds that to the finish. He will move in front of the Welshman in relation to the overall classification. So this now, all this information will be relayed to Geraint Thomas, but again, he's a master of pacing. An absolute, really, a fantastic time trialist, but Spilak on the ride of his life at the moment. Sensational stuff.
So Thomas hanging on to the jersey out on the road by, well, virtually nothing. 6 seconds to the good ahead of Spilak. Spilak's ahead of him on the road, but charging around these final kilometres at a rate of knots. Pinot has slipped to 3rd and could well slip off the podium the way that Tom Dumoulin is going. He's 44 seconds back, surely not going to get to Thomas and Spilak. Could well take the stage, but it looks like the GC fight is between Geraint Thomas and the Slovenian Simon Spilak. There's nothing to choose between them at the moment. Spilak on the slightly better ride and getting ever closer to the Welshman.
He certainly is, and look at the speed of Spilak. He's overhauling the Italian Domenico Pozzovivo, and Pozzovivo on his day can ride a great time trial. I don't think Pozzovivo would have expected this. Look at the different speed, the differential there as the Slovenian overhauls the Italian. There's nothing he can do about it. Relentless stuff. Domenico
Pozzovivo discovers that he's not going to beat Simon Spilak. There's only 3 seconds between them. Of course, 2 minutes between them on the road as they started the time trial. 2 minutes between the top 10 contenders when they sent them off the ramp. Now Tom Dumoulin, super run through the splits.
Another second conceded by Geraint Thomas now, but then he takes back another second. This is a pursuit match. It looks like Tom Dumoulin is going the quickest at the moment. He's by way the fastest through the 5th intermediate time check, but bear in mind Spilak has yet to go through there. So Dumoulin 11 seconds in front of the home favourite Fabian Cancellara. So at the moment, the Dutchman looking to the stage win.
Tom Dumoulin's looking good. He's into the final kilometres. He's back into the old town of Bern. It's beautiful national capital. Seat of Parliament is just within a couple of kilometres of Tom Dumoulin at the moment. It's a small, compact town, and it seems like so many of the residents are out to view the scene. 34% of this town actually foreign nationals, so amazingly cosmopolitan city, as well as beautiful old architecture. Now Tom Dumoulin making this little right-hander on the cobbles, and after his recent difficulties, one would expect he'll be a little bit more circumspect. Makes his way safely through that 90-degree right-hander and across the bridge.
Yeah, that was really hard in the mouth stuff, wasn't it? Again, that can scare you a little bit, but it's seemingly going on undeterred. He's comfortable on the pave. He's built for this sort of terrain, rises out of the saddle. But look at the battle in the top left of the screen a few moments ago. Spilak was 9 seconds to the better of Geraint Thomas. Geraint Thomas has managed to claw back another second and another second. 6 seconds now between Spilak and Thomas. What a battle for the title of the Tour of Switzerland, and here's Spilak on the road.
It's knife-edge stuff. Simon Spilak turns in and a little bit late, and that was not the planned line through that corner. They've had a look at that. They've raced it on the road. They've had further recce's today, and Simon Spilak finds himself going to the left of little bits of road furniture. they're all pushing to the absolute maximum. Little mistakes being made. I think Fabian Cancellara, well, he's biting his nails, and that's a rueful smile because he's aware that Tom Dumoulin's coming from, and so too is Simon Spilak.
I think he was just watching Spilak round that corner, but look at Spilak there. He's actually cut his jersey down. Perhaps he had a skin suit with the arms for too long. Looks like a bit of DIY, DIY haberdashery on the move there for Simon Spilak, but it's certainly not affecting his speed. Absolutely romping along this course today. 9 seconds better than Geraint Thomas at the moment. This is going to go down to the wire.
Thomas only has 4 seconds in hand. He's going uphill at the moment, and this is looking dangerous for Geraint Thomas's belief that he can win the Tour of Switzerland. Bit of a problem there with the gears.
It looks like he either jumped to gear or hit a pothole, but the thing is, when you're on those tri-bars, it's very difficult to steer the bike unless the road is smooth. So when you hit a divot in the road, a pothole or a drain, it can throw the bike to the right or left. But look at the face of Geraint Thomas. He believes he can win this, but what a battle he's had. He still is another second back from Spilak.
There's only 4 seconds between them. It's that tight. This one's coming down to the wire. Simon Spilak is ahead on the road and absolutely charging towards the finish line in Bern. Another second gain by Spilak, as Geraint Thomas now just with 3 seconds in hand, and he really is going to have to bury himself through the last couple of kilometres, because the 28-year-old Slovenian, winner of the Tour of Romandy in Switzerland back in 2010, 65th in the prologue, Spilak, and you wonder what happened to him in the prologue that he could pull this kind of effort out of the bag. We know how talented he is, but I wonder, did he believe that he had an overall chance going into this week?
Well, 65th in the prologue, not an overly impressive ride, but I mean, prologues, although generally they do give an indication onto how in relation to how riders going. We don't know if he had any problems there, but again, a time trial of this leg. Remember, this is 38.4 kilometers, completely different. Thomas now conceding 12 seconds to the Slovenian, takes a better line round that roundabout. That's better, certainly better here. He's gained maybe a tenth of a second now, but 13 seconds now. They're equal on time on the general classification.
Yeah, well, Spilak went through that corner. It was not so impressive, but much better line from Geraint Thomas, but the indication on the virtual is that Spilak has gained. And now it is that Simon Spilak, according to our calculations, out on the road is the virtual leader of the Tour of Switzerland by just 1 second.
He certainly is. There's still a little bit of distance to go. Geraint Thomas steals a second back. They're back on even Stevens at the moment. This is absolutely sensational stuff. I've seen some close race in the time. Remember that to the Tour de France with with Greg LeMond and Hinault and Fignon. 9 seconds. This is absolutely sensational. He steals back a second.
Thomas is back in the lead of Tour of Switzerland. You've never seen anything like that. Certainly the Tour of Switzerland. I wonder, has it ever had such a close conclusion? Simon Spilak and Geraint Thomas going toe-to-toe, 2 minutes apart on the road. Just a little bit under that because, well, Spilak is a little bit over that, actually, isn't it? Because Spilak is charging along into the state capital of Bern and looking like he's on course to take victory in the Tour of Switzerland. Tom Dumoulin surely heading towards the best time, and we're going to see him through with 37 kilometres completed. He's, well, within the final kilometre. Tom Dumoulin fastest by fully 19 seconds as we await the arrival of Steve Morabito, the best Swiss rider in the Tour of Switzerland on overall classification. He's not going to be top 10 in the time trial, but he's certainly going to be top 10 in the bike race. Been a great week for him, for Frances Dejean, and they are going to have a classification jersey because Steve Morabito, 12th fastest to this point. But let's greet Tom Dumoulin across the line. There's no one going to beat Tom Dumoulin at the moment because he's 19 seconds faster than Fabian Cancellara. It's polite applause for the Dutchman, who spoils the home party once more. A disappointment for Cancellara. He wanted this win. He wanted to give that to the fans after what's been a tough week of regaining form. But all hail Tom Dumoulin of the Netherlands, one of the best time trialists in the world at the moment.
Geraint Thomas now 15 seconds slower than Spilak on the road, which means that Spilak has a couple of seconds on him on the overall classification, but still we've got this short climb to go. If Spilak capitulates and Thomas feels strong, he could bring it back, but this really is going to go down to the finish straight. What a grandstand finish this is, but Dumoulin looks like it's a shoe-in for the stage. A superb time there.
Spilak was 9 seconds slower than Tom Dumoulin through the 33-kilometre point. Well, they're leaving out on that virtual times, they're leaving out Geraint Thomas, so I'm not sure that was entirely accurate. There's probably a couple of seconds between Szymon Spilak and Geraint Thomas.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at with the next time check will be the 37-kilometre check, and then of course it's only 1.4 Ks to the finish. Spilak 12 seconds now, so Thomas has come back a little bit. Battling, he'll have that information being shouted through him. He'll have race radio on. Now it's this rise. Look at Thomas absolutely roaring along. He knows he has to squeeze every single last bit of energy out of those legs if he's going to win this race. Can he do it?
Geraint Thomas charging along, gains a couple of seconds on Szymon Spilak, back into the virtual lead. He'll be getting the information. That's his advantage. That's the advantage that he's gained over the 8 stages that have preceded this in the Tour of Switzerland. What a week of racing we've had. Tom Dumoulin kicking it off with that prologue. This race bookended by 2, well, thrilling time trials, and we've had some sensational racing out the road as well. Some epic mountain climbing, particularly that climb in Austria to the Rettenbach Gletscher, when Geraint Thomas discovered his climbing legs.
Well, let's hope he's got, his cobbled legs. Remember, his early season campaign in Northern Europe. Can he apply that to that final climb, that 200-metre stretch of cobbles? Can he dig deep and roar over those cobbles? 4 Ks to go for the Welshman.
Twice a gold medalist and the team pursued in the Olympics. Winner of the E3 Harold Becker in 2015. Winner of Tour of Algarve this year as well. But well, look at that. It's looking good for Geraint Thomas as he's gained a couple of seconds back, then loses one. It's within 3 seconds. It's nip and tuck. There's nothing to choose between them. Spilak is on the climb. He's sawing away at those cranks. Has he saved anything? Has he perhaps gone out a little bit hard? Because Thomas is coming back at him, and it looks as if Thomas has saved a little bit for the conclusion. But remember, Thomas still has to go up this hill as well.
He certainly does. It's fluctuating between 10 and 9 seconds, but Thomas over the last kilometre or so has managed to claw back 4 or 5 seconds. It's down to 9 seconds now. It looks like Thomas has saved something. 8 seconds now. Thomas clearly on the late part of this course, going a little bit quicker than Spilak, but here's Thibaut Pinot. He was the leader of this race, but unfortunately for the Frenchman, it's all falling away.
Well, he has got that wonderful stage success from up to the Rettenbach Gletscher, and the knowledge that his form is coming nicely ahead of the Tour de France to come. But for Thibaut Pinot, it doesn't look as if he's going to be successful in taking overall honours in the Tour of Switzerland. Could it be this man, Szymon Spilak, as he bounces across a little pothole? I didn't think there were any potholes in Switzerland, but these solid back wheels and those tubs pumped up to about 1 million PSI, well, they'll discover them if they're there.
They certainly will. Yeah, they'll have about well over 100 of PSI in those tyres, about 110 PSI, and again, solid disc wheels, completely and utterly unforgiving as Thomas now. Spilak steals a second back, 11 seconds now. This is like two boxers in the ring trading blows.
Thomas is on the hill now. He got it back to 8 seconds gap between them as he climbs up this final ramp, getting the cheers from the crowd and no doubt getting the roars as he's got well, extremely high cadence, and that's a sign that he's perhaps saved a little bit.
He's looking fresh, he's not panicking, he's not labouring on the gear. Thomas, of course, knows how to measure his effort but loses another second. Bear in mind that Spilak is the slightly lighter rider, so that climb will suit him.
Miguel Angel Lopez from the Astana squad, the Colombian rider in his first year as a professional. It's not a top time trial from him, 40th fastest. What's that going to do to his overall finishing position? Surely a top 10 for him, but he could well slip back a couple of spots. Tom Dumoulin lurking as well, of course, and could well be overhauled. Maybe just 1 spot lost. Now, Geraint Thomas has gained a little bit more. It's looking good for Geraint Thomas at the moment. Szymon Spilak through the last couple of turns and into that final kilometre for the Slovenian as he gets out of the saddle and tries to summon one last burst of energy. Gains another second with that charge out of the corner. It really is so incredibly close.
Geraint Thomas has crest the climb, gets out of the saddle, selects the gear. This is where he'll use his immense power, the power that we've seen him put to so good effects in the classics earlier this year. But Spilak now, the finishing straight is in sight for the Slovenian. He adjusts his helmet and he moves into the finishing straight. What has he got left for the last 300 metres?
Well, his face is impassive as if this is easy, but the last time check we got was they were absolutely locked and level on time. If anything, he's gained a couple of seconds, but Geraint Thomas has a couple more minutes to try and see if he can claw that one back. cheering to the line, the big crowd here in Bern. Witness Simon Spilak, who has left everything out of the road. The rider from Katusha, from Slovenia, weaving his way into the final couple of 100 metres. He's across the line. That's it. It's done. He's second fastest. Spilak goes second to Tom Dumoulin. A wonderful time trial effort from the Slovenian. Hasn't been good enough to unseat Geraint Thomas from that virtual jersey. It certainly hasn't been quite good enough to unseat Tom Dumoulin, who will surely take stage honours. But we do have a couple of riders still out on course. This man, Geraint Thomas, followed by the overall race leader, Thibaut Pinot. Pinot seems sure to lose his jersey, but Thomas hanging on to the lead by just 1 second. It's absolutely tortuous stuff for the Welshman. Will he be able to hang on, or will Spilak steal a famous victory?
Well, what he will know, he'll know the exact information. He'll know what he has to do. All he needs to do is beat the time of Spilak. But again, 1 second, this really hanging in the balance. The information will be pumped through to the headphones just underneath his helmet there. All he can do is try and ride the race of his life, stay upright. He'll be taking a few risks through these last few corners. The Flamme Rouge is in sight. What has Geraint Thomas got left in the tank?
He's out of the saddle. 1 second between himself and Spilak on virtual. That's the last indication that we got. 1,000 metres left for Geraint Thomas and a famous victory. This could be career-defining stuff for the Welshman, or will it ultimately be a disappointment for the Team Sky rider? Out of the saddle once more, out of that corner, and back in the saddle, and a much, much higher cadence than Spilak. It's quite noticeable, isn't it? As he winds up this big gear and spins it for all that he's worth. He's in the hurt locker, there's no doubt about it. What's he got left as he charges towards the line? Tom Dumoulin surely is secure in the stage victory, but will Geraint Thomas manage to hang on? It's Simon Spilak, 48.54, with 12 seconds remaining in the stage for Geraint Thomas to get to the finish line. Surely it's not going to happen. Looks like it's been a difficult final kilometre for Geraint Thomas. Last couple of K, as he's not going to win, because it is Simon Spilak that's going to take overall honours. What an effort from Geraint Thomas. Surely a top 6 finish in the time trial. He's left everything out at the road. It's been a great effort, and he's been climbing well this week, but disappointment, I think, ultimately for Geraint Thomas and Team Sky as he finishes the time trial. 5th fastest for the Welshman, 35 seconds back, and Spilak, it would appear, is going to take overall honours in the Tour of Switzerland. He's getting the information. He's just witnessing Thomas coming across the line, and he's putting his arms up. He's afraid to believe it. And his team helper comes to give him the news. A clenched fist and a wave of the hand, and they don't know whether to believe it or not. Thibaut Pinot is still out there in the yellow jersey, still yet to conclude his time trial, so we will watch and get those images very shortly. Simon Spilak seems quite cool, calm and collected about it, doesn't he?
Well, we just get confirmation that did go down to the wire. We're going to get confirmation through. They're having there's a bit of a lag on our information here. We should get the virtual standings in a minute.
Well, did he get it or not? Because from the time that...
It looks like he has got it. It's confirmation that Simon Spilak has won the general classification. Geraint Thomas second on the overall. And there's the winner of the Tour of Switzerland, is confirmed. A quite remarkable fight back.
We've still got Thibaut Pinot out on course, but at the moment I think we're talking about 4 seconds between Spilak and Geraint Thomas. Thomas needed, he only had 13 seconds in hand, crossed the line 18 seconds behind, so 4 to 5 seconds between Geraint Thomas and this man, Simon Spilak, who's heading towards the podium. Thibaut Pinot still out there. And Simon Spilak is a big emerging name. He likes his Swiss stage races, former winner of Tour of Romandy, 3 times second in the Tour of Romandy. Now it would appear he's taken victory in the Tour of Switzerland from Geraint Thomas, from Tom Dumoulin, Domenico Pozzovivo, and this man, Thibaut Pinot. Well, Tom Dumoulin still sitting in the hot seat. Disappointment for Geraint Thomas. He'll be thinking about all the places out on the course that he could have gained a half a second here, or a second there. If he'd pushed a bit harder, maybe hadn't pushed as hard, and
it's difficult, you know. You can look back, I mean, just by looking at his face, it looks like he couldn't have gone any harder, but perhaps he will look back and say, what could I have done better? But really, given the way Geraint Thomas has ridden this race, the first time, you know, he has won smaller stage race in the past, but the first time he's ridden a stage race for overall honours with the big mountains and the time trials, I don't think there's much more he could have done. But here's the man who was still in the leader's jersey.
Well, he's emptying the tank, and it's going to be a pretty strong time trial performance from Thibaut Pinot. Within the top 15, I feel. For Thibaut Pinot, the top French talent of his generation. Perhaps an overall contender in the Tour de France in a couple of weeks' time, but the time trial on this occasion not playing to his strengths. And in the yellow jersey to conclude the Tour of Switzerland for 2015. 14th fastest for Thibaut Pinot, trades 1 minute 50 to Tom Dumoulin, the winner of the stage. And Thibaut Pinot slips out of the overall lead and hands it over to Simon Spilak, waiting for full confirmation of the finishing positions and indeed the finishing positions on general classification. But no doubt that this man, Simon Spilak, has taken the overall win.
Yeah, it looks like Pinot has actually slipped off the podium with that ride. Again, subject to confirmation, it looks like Pinot will be 4th on the general classification, Dumoulin 3rd, and this man here, Geraint Thomas of Team Sky, 2nd, and the winner, Spilak.
Well, there it is. Stage 9 of the Tour of Switzerland goes to Tom Dumoulin, the time trial specialist. 18 seconds advantage over Spilak, who manages to pip Fabian Cancellara for 2nd. Adrian Malori, the Italian for Movistar, is 4th. Geraint Thomas, a disappointed 5th. And Bob Jungels will be happy with 6th. Coppel, good effort for him. And EM Cycling, 7th fastest. Cam Meyer, good effort for him too as well. The Orica Green Edge rider in 8th. Maika for Tinkoff Saxo, 9th. And there is confirmation of the final general classification of the Tour of Switzerland for 2015. Simon Spilak takes the victory by 5 seconds from Geraint Thomas. Tom Dumoulin 19 seconds back on the podium, and Thibaut Pinot slips from 1st to 4th on the final day. Pozzovivo from 4th to 5th. Bob Jungels vaults up from 13th to 6th. Lopez slips back the order to 7th. Tom Dumoulin ends the Tour of Switzerland of 2015 with 2 stage victories and a place on the podium. And I wonder if he also won't eye 3-week tours and perhaps think that he can climb with the best of them and perhaps beat them in the time trials. It's a thought that no doubt will be occurring to Geraint Thomas as well. Some people are saying he's the new Wiggins, a man who can time trial and also climb with many of the best of them. Ultimately disappointing, but still a superb performance from the Welshman this week. And now we wait for the arrival of the overall winner of Tour of Switzerland, Simon Spilak, the Slovenian, is 28 years of age. Rises to the top step. He's shorter than his 2 podium companions, but certainly can generate the power. And he breathes a sigh of relief. Tough 9 days.
Certainly is. I mean, he said he didn't expect to come and win the Tour of Switzerland, but he did, and it's obviously the biggest victory of his career. But just, you can just see Geraint Thomas' face tinged with disappointment, but that's expected. He's a winner, he's a thoroughbred, but again, he can take a lot from this race. He can also look to the future, and as can Tom Dumoulin as well. As you said, I agree with you, Declan. I think both those riders capable of riding well in the Grand Tours of the future. But at the moment, it's about this man in the centre, the Slovenian. Great win, can't take anything away. Superb time trial, never lost too much time. Rode so well up the Reichenbacher, but was there. He rode a stealthy race, really. Again, you know, a poor time trial, which almost, I suppose, made people forget about his presence, but he was always there or thereabouts and pounced in the final. So a fine, fine win for this rider from Katusha.